Massaba's in the middle. Wednesday here could seal it. Casimir finds Masaba. Yeah!
Now Bannon with a great ball in. Here's an opportunity. Palmer scores! Liam Palmer has scored for Sheffield Wednesday.
Not going to lie, it's a tough one to take. Never nice to lose against your closest rivals, especially when you're in that away end, just gutted in the end. You never know, with a few 40,000 a week players and a few more ham sandwiches, that we might have got something out of that one. Hello and welcome to Wednesday Tie-Dye Podcast. I'm James Mappin, and alongside me once again is Mr. Matt Johnson. Matt, how you going, mate? All right?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, James. I'm not too bad. I'm much better than I was walking out of Bramall Lane at, 3 o'clock or whenever it was when we finally got let out. But yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right, James.
Matt, if you could sum up in a word or two how you feel at the moment, how would it be? 2
words. Frustrated, but very proud of the... obviously, not the rest of it isn't part of this, but frustrated, obviously, about the result, but proud in terms of the effort and application that was shown by the players on the pitch today.
Yeah, I think, I have to agree, to be honest. Massive underdogs going into it, and yeah, it could have been a lot different, beforehand. I'd gone through every single possible scenario, and there were quite a few where I'd be walking out a lot more disappointed than what I did. So yeah, for me, it's just gutted. I don't think there's any anger. There's nothing against the players or the performance or what was put out today. Just gutted that it was one moment of brilliance that went their way and not ours, really. But yeah, before we talk about the game in more detail, kind of pre-game, you parked up at mine, went down together, which is a bit of a rarity for any sort of game, to be honest. But yeah, I was feeling okay up until today, but the nerves started coming a little bit. I mean, you felt all right, didn't you? Weirdly enough, today as well.
Yeah, I was saying on the pod that I think this time last week, and obviously during the preview show and the pre-recording shows with Jimmy, was saying I was feeling really incredibly nervous about it and all the rest of it. But yeah, woke up today and there was no. I was nervous, but there were no more nerves than sort of like any other important game, I suppose, that Wednesday have had in recent years. It wasn't. I didn't have the same feeling of, I suppose, what we did when we went to, obviously at home to Peterborough or Sunderland, and I think it was because of the magnitude of what was on those games and the fact that this is a game in November. And that's not me trying to play the Steel City derby down, obviously, because it is it's an incredibly important game for both sides. It was just, I think, as Wednesday fans, we've had such massive emotional highs and lows, and I think it had sort of there, but then when we parked up outside the back of DFS today and some bloke started shouting about £100 fines, I started getting a bit more nervous, I'll be honest for you. But yeah, aside from that, mate, yeah, absolutely fine. And then on the walk into the ground, as you start approaching it and it starts getting a bit more real, I think me and you were stood in the concourse with Steve beforehand, and we were like, an hour or so before, we were like, oh, this is fine. And then all of a sudden, as everybody starts piling in with about 20 minutes to go, both of us were, the conversation had definitely died down a little bit, and it was a lot more checking your watches and starting to think about do you want to start moving and all the rest of it. So yeah, there was clearly some nerves there, like pre-kickoff, yeah, definitely. I
could sense it in the air though as well, Matt. I could as we were walking to Bramall Lane, obviously we turned left onto Bramall Lane as well. It was just. There were a lot of people around. I mean, it wasn't like, bouncing or anything, but, clearly a lot of United fans, and you could sense that, tension. Not necessarily tension, just nerves, I think, more than anything else. People are almost, scared to start singing and chanting. It was oddly quiet for a game of this magnitude. And I think it was just that, one, we'd not really turned up yet, but two, probably just they were obviously going into it as massive favourites, and it's like in this day and age now you can't be too confident because everyone just it's that fear of looking like a twat when you've said that you're going to beat them, win 4-0 and hammer them, and it don't work out like that, so nobody really says a thing. You've got to grow some and just go for it, to be fair.
Just go for it, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just really quiet, and I felt like kind of in the concourse as well. There weren't much singing initially. Obviously, once one song went, that was it then, and we were fully into it and everything else, and it was great. That atmosphere on there, it were bouncing, which were nice to see and just great to be part of. I did feel like it was a very weird atmosphere. I'm not going to lie. I don't really know what I was expecting. Well, I was probably expecting a little bit more, to be honest. But yeah, I just felt like nobody really knew what sort of side we were going to see. Nobody knew what they were going to put out, and it was just very, very Cajun. I think that, well, obviously we'll get onto the game in a second. And what did you make to the atmosphere as a whole?
I think if you're thinking from a South Yorkshire police perspective, that will have been as good as it could have gone today. Because that 12:30 kickoff on a Sunday, especially on Remembrance Sunday, I know there was a lot of calls for the game not being played on Remembrance Sunday and actually people being able to pay the respects, either marching through the city or meeting. But I actually thought that 12:30 on a Sunday on such an important day for near enough every member of this country actually probably fed into that a little bit because it was a little bit more somber because there's something else that's there. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think it was a strange atmosphere because I think, this isn't me trying to have a dig here. I think, say for argument's sake, when you look at the game that's coming up in March, because there's so few Wednesday fans in comparison to United fans, it's almost like on home fans to set the tone of it a little bit. Like if it is hostile, like if I think about the last one with the Cameron Dawson penalty save from McGoldrick, the atmosphere there was very hostile that night. It was very sort of tense and like moody, I'd describe it. Like there was a lot of, like real hatred around that evening. And it didn't feel like that at all today. As you say, when we turned on to Bramall Lane, it was quiet. Like you could hear conversations of people who were 10, 15 yards up the road. You could hear police officers' radios going off and bits and pieces like that, which I know there's been footage that have come out of when a large portion of Sheffield Wednesday fans have arrived at the game and Sheffield United fans have waited for them and started chucking flares at them and chanting back and forth and all the rest of it. And that's a bit more contained to like that, but it didn't have that moody edge to it, and I think that carried on into the game really. Like there was some, let's get out of in front of it, there's been some abhorrent things that have happened on both sides of the Steel City today, which has been really good to see both sets of fans coming out and condemning, both ours as Sheffield Wednesday fans, and Wednesday fans have been quick to jump on it and help out the individuals who were involved in those incidents. But there's also been United fans that have overstepped that mark, which both managers beforehand called for not doing so and not going far. But again, after, I think from the 25 minutes, half an hour of constant singing from kind of like Wednesday fans and trying to get chants going, I think, if I'm being completely honest, definitely from the area that I was in, there was a group of lads in front of me who were trying all first half to get chants going. And when they realised that they got nothing coming back and nobody really to like play with or bounce off or anything like that, it very much sort of like petered out until, obviously we'll get onto the goal when United scored and everybody all of a sudden realised that they were watching a game of football.
Have you seen Shea Dunkley's tweet, Matt?
Yes, yeah.
I'll read, for those that haven't seen it, I will read it out because it was quite funny. He's put, it was meant to be 1 minute silence for Remembrance Day. The Blades were very respectful and were silent until the 50th minute, until they scored. Can't wait for the reverse fixture. And do you know what as well? I thought exactly the same as you mentioned. Yeah, they were loud for the first 10, 15 minutes, but then I think, game plan was, and we spoke about it beforehand, was to quieten the home crowd down, and I think that worked to a T really. And I think, a disappointment was the fact that we didn't really make that pressure count near the end, because there was points in that, I think it was literally after 30 minutes they stopped pressing, and for the final 15 minutes of that first half, we had a bit of joy and we had a bit of possession, which were quite nice. And yeah, like I said, just didn't really do a great deal with it in that final third. But yeah, like I said, the atmosphere was. Wasn't what I really expected for a Steel City derby, but you were sat way on the right hand side, like literally in the corner. I might as well have been back out on Bramall Lane, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, but I was kind of literally, thinking about it, probably as far away from you that I could have possibly got, because I was sat right in the other corner on row 3. I was or row C, whatever it was. I was right at the front, right down at the bottom. So you probably saw me on the Sky cameras. I know it certainly did pan across at one point because I did get a few messages to said that they'd seen me. But yeah, I was miles away. So I think because I was so far like in the corner and not bang in the middle, I think I can't really comment, I suppose, on what our atmosphere was like, in that away end. But yeah, it was a weird one. I mean, like I said, I didn't really hear them sing many songs until they sang about some sort of sausage roll or something, whatever they were singing. I don't really know what that were all about. It was probably good as a tweet. Probably should have stayed a tweet. It's all I'm going to say on the matter.
I didn't understand until today how much he'd rattled them and how much that song had rattled them. Because again, like I genuinely didn't understand that. Like again, I know it's obviously like banter flying about, like for lack of a better word, and I know it's kind of like jokes flying about between two sets of fan bases. But I didn't hear that from like minute 1, 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in. There was none of that. It took them going 1-0 up, and then it took until about 70 minutes before they'd realised, oh, actually, we can give back some shit to their manager. Because to be fair, Chris Wilder took a lot of stick today. Yeah. I do not like him. I've said that this week. I can't stand United as a club. To be fair to him, and credit where it's due, he did actually acknowledge it. I think midway through the first half and midway through the second half, when people were singing about his daughter, he did start kind of like pointing and gesticulating and smacking the badge, which, again, we've had with Megson, so we've done it first yet again. But it's one of those where actually, as a United fan, you'll be sat there going, yeah, actually, I quite like that, especially after a win as well.
Just another thing as well. Why do they have to sing all the same songs as ours, but kind of change them to fit United, and it just doesn't work at all for any of them? Like, I just don't really get that either. Just think of your own songs.
Strange bunch, James. Strange bunch.
Anyway, I wish I were talking more about how we'd beaten them rather than how shit the chants were. But we've got to do something, I guess.
Got to pad it out until we start talking about games after the international break, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's talk about the game then. Let's talk about the starting lineup before we do anything else. Unchanged for the first time. Correct me if I'm wrong. This season, I don't think we've been able to say those words yet. Beadle in goal. Io for Bernard. Max Lowe is a Wednesdayite. Valerie Johnson, Bannon, Charles, Ingleson, Ugbo, and Windass. What did you make to that one? We beat Norwich 2-0 last time out, and he felt obviously that was good enough to go into this one without making any changes.
Yeah, I had no problem with the starting 11. I thought it was smart. I know there was a lot of calls pre-game for Michael Smith, and I know there's been a lot of calls after the game, and kind of a lot of EK Ugbo is currently the scapegoat amongst Sheffield Wednesday fans, and I know we're going to discuss him on extra time, so please sign up to Patreon, 7-day free trial. But it is one of those, James, where, like, again, you're sending out the same side that were 2-0 up going into half-time against Norwich before you started ringing the changes. Ultimately, I had no problem with it. I think that Bannon, Charles, Ingleson on Tuesday night worked. And I think in the first half here, I think it worked again because obviously Ingleson doesn't provide the natural width. Ingleson obviously drops in to fill in those central roles. And I think between the three of them, Bannon, Charles and Ingleson, they do have quite a... And Windass on the other side, they do have quite a good understanding of when to kind of like, they need to rotate and swap round. I think it allows your wing backs to push up. I know we're going to come on to discuss kind of like how the game's panned out and certain performers from the game. But it allows, it's a smart formation. Again, from Tuesday night, I had no problem with it being exactly the same. I don't know how you felt because I know we were talking pre-game. You were saying I would have liked to have seen Michael Smith come into that starting 11.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like we were saying beforehand, if a chance is going to fall to someone, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but I'd rather it fall to Michael Smith than anyone else, because he's been scoring the goals, him or Windass. But I don't think the conversation is ever going to be Smith or Windass. It's obviously Smith or Ugbo at this moment in time. So yeah, having seen a few chances fall to Ugbo so far this season, and he's made a bit of a hash of them. I didn't want the same thing to happen today, really. I didn't think there were going to be many chances. Lo and behold, there wasn't. We hadn't had any shot on target at all. So, yeah, I just felt like, also as well, I mean, I didn't really take into consideration how tall their centre-backs were, but just purely from a fact of, just purely from a fact of how I thought the game was going to go, and I felt we weren't going to have much possession, and we might have been under the cosh a little bit. I felt like, he's a better hold-up player than what Ike Ugbo is. So I just thought it gives you a chance of pumping the ball up to him. He might be able to hold it up, and you can just advance further up the pitch. As it happened, it wasn't that much of a game. I didn't feel like we were just penned in and couldn't get out of his own half. So maybe we didn't really need that in the end. But yeah, certainly pre-game, I felt Smith had done more than enough to start, and on the converse, I don't think Ugbo had done a great deal to get his start. I know Danny's talked about his pressing off the ball, but I've already spoke about this before. I want my strikers scoring goals. If you start talking about the other stuff that a striker's been doing, like you just almost like making an excuse for him, and he's paid to put that ball in the back of the net. And I wasn't disappointed when I saw it, because I'd heard a few people saying what Ugbo can do. I know I've just kind of contradicted myself a little bit, but I thought actually, you've kind of convinced me a little bit in how the game's going to be played, and we might need that sort of pressing to put them under a bit of pressure. But I was all right in the end, to be honest. I'm just going to read a few comments out. Mikey said, definitely didn't deserve to lose today. Gave a good account of ourselves, just lacking up top. I think Beadle could have done better. Danny said, I feel okay about it, so on to the next. Yeah, Cardiff after the international break. Adam on Twitter, he said, we didn't deserve to lose. That's what's gutting about that one. Mitch, we deserved a point from today, that the boys played well. All we can ask for. Rash on Twitter, if you look at the value of the teams on paper, we did very well. And one more, Sky Mag said, not too disappointed, thought we played well. Our inability to connect passes in the opposition box is concerning. Valerie caught ball watching for the goal. Do get involved on Twitter and on YouTube as well. Read out some of the comments. There's one there, a couple saying that we deserved a draw, Matt. Do you agree? Would a draw perhaps been a fair result given the balance of play?
Yeah, I think what you saw today was, I thought, again, to be fair, one side has got far more quality individuals in it. I don't think on the day that Sheffield United were the better team, but I think in terms of quality of individuals, I think they outstrip us at this point in time. But actually, I thought that we, as a unit, we were really, really solid. I think, yes, it's a game of half chances, really, more than kind of like gilt-edged chances, arguably, other than the one for the goal. And I think that's reflected on, I know, obviously, so as depressing it's been, me and you have to watch the highlights before coming on to talk about this. But when you go back and you watch the highlights that are out, the highlight package that was put together from Sky, the indication of how few chances there were in the game, there's about 20 seconds at the end of it, which is Chris Wilder celebrating. The rest of them are the Sheffield United goal and a replay for it, and then Sheffield Wednesday chances. And I think realistically, I think a draw would have been a fair result, because I don't think either side, there was one moment of quality in the game, which, to be fair, probably on the balance of play was the only real quality move. It's just a shame that it came against us, and you can't keep it out your net. But a draw was a fair result for both sides. And I think, again, once all of the emotion and the kind of like the heat of kind of like this Steel City derby, if you actually just remove it from that kind of everything that's wrapped up with the game, because obviously you're never going to admit that obviously it should have been a draw. But if we'd have gone on to nick that 1-0, it's we know we had one chance and we took it.
Deserved
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it deserved it. We worked so hard and blah blah blah. But a draw was a fair result, and I think that's been reflected by a lot of neutrals who didn't watch the game have also said that, aside from poking fun at Gus Harmer for having to stand on a box to do his post-game interview. Because as you say, I mean, you've already mentioned how tall their centre-halves were, and I know we were all saying, oh yeah, no, they are tall. Fucking hell, it's land of giants, those two centre-halves. But yeah, draw was a fair result.
To be fair, I thought it was Gary Barlow's son that had lined up for them. But yeah, he is pretty tall, and Ugbo got nothing out of him in that first half. I don't even know why we even tried to go long up to him. Like, what is the point?
No.
Like, there is none, is there, really? But yeah, I thought a point would have been fair. Yeah, like you said, of course you want to go and win that game. Of course we could have nicked it, but just frustrating that I felt Danny was probably holding on to get to 60, 70 minutes at 0-0. And then, we can bring the changes on. We had Jamal Lowe, we had Michael Smith on the bench, Masaba, Gassama, a lot of attacking threat that we could have brought on. And obviously we did bring on, but we brought it on at 1-0 down. And I think, he'd have been frustrated that this plan, although nearly worked, just didn't quite get there to execute it how he wanted to, really. But yeah, I thought if it would have finished 0-0 or 1-1, I don't think there'd have been many complaints really on the balance of the play. There was very little quality. It was a proper derby game because I'll think back and there's never normally many goals. I mean, the last three have ended 0-0, and I think it was just a very, very cagey affair, Matt, where two sides didn't want to lose really.
Yeah, you want to sum up that first half. If you go back and watch the highlights, watch the Josh Windass fluffing his chance when he's got 5 yards of space in the box where it rolls underneath his foot, and then the following shot from Shea Charles, which goes about 30 foot over the bar. Yeah. Ultimately, I thought United had a lot of the ball in the first half, but couldn't get round the side of us, couldn't go through the middle of us. And I thought when we broke, it breaks down obviously in the final third, which we've seen a number of times this season, and that's a recurring problem and a recurring theme. But yeah, there was very, very little quality. And again, the second half, aside from the goal, it's breakaways and pressure on the edge of boxes, but deliveries into the box from both sides were poor, and chances were at a premium. And when you've got those opportunities to take a shot, you've got to make goalkeepers work from both sides. There was a couple of half opportunities that sort of fell to our players, and I think the most disappointing thing from my perspective is Michael Cooper's not got any ounce of mud on his shirt today. We've not forced him into even any level of save. There was one which Jedi Kasama sort of slipped and seemed to come off a United player, and I think he just dived for the sake of it, Michael Cooper, because I think he was just thinking, I've got to get some mud on my kit here, because otherwise the after game photos are going to look a bit shit, aren't they? Because that was
this match worn shirt. They were saying this is not match worn.
Yeah, he said match worn. No, not at all. But again, you could say exactly the same for James Beadle. Aside from the goal, he's not been worked. He's not been tested. He's not.
That's the most frustrating thing. That is the most frustrating thing about the game, is that other than that one chance, literally, the game was just in the balance, and we really frustrating more than anything else. But it can't do anything about it now, can we? It's all done. Before we talk about their goal, I felt that plan was to quieten the crowd down. That's how I wanted us to play. I knew we were going to set up for a really boring game of football, but that's exactly what Danny Röhl wanted to do, and it worked as well, because like I mentioned, it got to around about 30 minutes, and it was hushed. There was there was everyone going shh in the way end. You know what I mean? It was I hate these chants when it's at Hillsborough. The football in the library. To be fair to us, we didn't sing it after a minute, like you sometimes hear at Hillsborough. Like there was a bit of football played in a library, so before we started singing it, and you could see some of their players were getting a bit frustrated with some of the passing. There were nobody to pass to. They were, the arms were in the air, and we clearly, it was, don't press them in there off. Obviously when they get into the final third, that's when you engage with them. But it was just a case of, let them have the ball. And we've done that, against West Brom. We've done that against Norwich. And obviously we've won both of those games. So you can see exactly why Danny's tried to just employ the same tactics.
Yeah, 100%, James. I think if you're looking for a summary or a player who summarises that first half, from our perspective, it was Max Lowe. And I know that's going to anger a lot of Sheffield United fans, but all I have heard all week is how good Raksaki is out wide for United, and how he's going to absolutely tear Marvin Johnson and Max Lowe to shreds, and you won't be able to contain him, and Gus Harmer out the other wing. Gus Armour tried a little bit of skill in the first half and he backheeled it out for a goal kick from 15 yards. And Raksaki was that effective that he got hooked just after the start of the second half. I thought we contained them incredibly well. I thought we were also the aggressors in terms of one of the things that I think, again, if you're looking at the return fixture, and I don't know whether this is down to the quality in the squad, but I do think there was the Bannon challenge on Harrison Burrows. I think it was, or was it Arblaster? It was one of the two. Where United are breaking. Yeah, United are breaking, and he goes 100 mile an hour into the tackle. Ultimately, he makes minimal contact, but it gets everybody up, and that was the only thing that really got United fans out the seat in that first
nearly
half.
Killed him, according to United fans. Nearly killed him.
But that was the only thing.
He's been airlifted to hospital after the game. That's what's happened after that one.
But that was the only thing, James, that realistically got United fans out the seat in that first half, because we frustrated them and we contained them so well. We did things where I know Marvin Johnson ultimately ended up getting brought off, and hopefully that's not a little bit of 2 weeks break will bring him back to full strength, because he's been one of our best performers over the past couple of weeks. But it took Marvin Johnson going down and we just took the sting out the game. There were a couple of breaks in play where players were going down with a knock or an injury, and we were actually getting back into the shape. We spoke about it last week when we were talking about the Watford game. Watford slowed the game down. They slowed the tempo down. They made us play their game ultimately. Yeah. And I think we did that in the first half. We forced them into playing everything in front of us. And when we broke with a purpose. We broke with an intention. The ball would go out wide to rivalry and things would stop. And they'd go backwards maybe a little bit. And that's not a knock on him. That's more a knock on sort of, I suppose, what we're asking him to do. But there was very little quality in it. And again, if you're looking at a first half, and to be fair, Chris Wilder came out afterwards and said they executed their first half game plan really, really well. And I don't think anybody could, from a Sheffield United persuasion, I don't think anybody could argue that over the course of that first half, we were the better side in the game.
And do you know what? I mentioned it earlier on, but I thought, like, in the final 10, 15 minutes, we had chances. Like, well, we certainly got forward, and we were having more of the ball, which, I'm sure United fans had gone in at half-time thinking, like, they're coming into the game. Like, the half-time, I've said this a few times already this season. I can't remember what game it was a couple of weeks ago, but half-time came at the wrong point. It was Watford, weren't it? Like, the Watford game. Like, we were on top there, half-time comes and, there's only one team winning, and I wouldn't have said there's only one team winning today, but certainly, it was Max Lowe feeding it into Ingleson and Johnson, down that left-hand side, and it was working quite well. Like, Johnson was getting forward, he was getting some balls across. I mean, look, I was sat right down at the bottom, so I can't really see, but there were a few occasions where the ball's gone straight across, and you're thinking, where's someone just flying in there to get a toe end on it or something? I mean, look, it probably looked a lot different on the Sky cameras, or if you were sat a little bit higher up. But certainly from my vantage point, it certainly looked a lot, looked promising. Put it that way. And it was just again, use that word, frustrated that we didn't make those count. But I went in at half time thinking, it's all right. This we were probably the better of the two sides in terms of from a fan base looking at how the first half's gone. And we were more than in it, which I think is more than what a few people could have said looking at how the game could have panned out beforehand. Their goal then, I've watched it back because, like I've just mentioned, I couldn't really see, from what happened from where I was, I'm going to say sat, but stood. And I suppose you've got to hand it to him. We've mentioned his one bit of quality, and Hamer feints to shoot and sells Bannon a dummy, and Windass as well, to be fair. It's a pass to O'Hare, which he's offside and he comes onside, and everyone's looking forward. He's obviously behind everyone, so he's just ghosted to the right-hand side. Then he picks it up on the half turn, and it's just a good pass that's let Campbell in. I mean, you could look and say Bernard and Iorfa have gone with the runners and they've then played him onside, whereas everyone else they haven't got a man, so they've stood up, which means he's onside, and then he makes no mistake, does he really? I've seen some people saying that Beadle perhaps could have done a little bit better, but I just think it's just down to a well-worked a well-worked move and a decent goal.
I thought it was the only time all game where they actually got down the side of us and actually cut us open down the side of down the side of us. It's just a shame that it was all within the width of the penalty box and the goal, really. The first, again, without wanting to dig people out, obviously, and dig players out because of the nature of the game and obviously the nature of how much it means to all the fan bases, the foul that is given away by Dominic Iorfa is never a foul. It's just simply not. It's yes, I'm aware that the Sheffield United player gets his foot to the ball first. The ball's going out for a throw in. Dominic Iorfa goes shoulder to shoulder with him, and the lad just chucks himself on the floor.
I saw Len Goodman in the front row, 7 for that one.
It was. Do you know what? Again, because 2 minutes earlier there had been a very similar incident on Jan Valery, which Vinny Souza has posted obviously to X and been like, there's a photo of Jan Valery kind of throwing his arms up in the air and him smiling. I would argue it's because he knows he's got away with one. That should have been a Wednesday free kick. Obviously, it's not. It's a home decision. On the referee, just while we're here, first half I thought he reffed the game really well, let the game flow. I thought second half it became a decisions for home teams, and every 50-50 or every half sort of decision seemed to go United's way.
It felt like, from the ref's point of view, it felt like I'm just going to, once they went ahead, it was like, I'm just going to give every decision to them and I just want to get out of here and just go home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and if they win the game 1-0, there's more chance of me being able to do that. And that's kind of how I thought. I mean, yeah, look, bitter. Maybe that's what some United fans might say, but there was a lot of soft fouls. I mean, there is an argument that you could say, don't give the ref the opportunity to do that. But again, when you've got three of their players going down in the box on a corner, I mean, I'm not being funny. These are grown men. And
they're all 6'7".
Yeah, you're not telling me that 3 players all get out-muscled by Wednesday players and thrown to the ground all at the same time. I'm not having any of it. Like, refs just been, he's took it up line and sinker, and it happens too often. And I'm not just saying it for this game. I think it just spoils the game of football that you have to kind of con the referee into giving you a foul. Like, see, I'd want to push, go out in the tunnel and just give the player a push. And if they fall down, fair enough. That's what he's done on pitch. But if they stand up, you go, well, that's funny that. On pitch, on that grass out there, you'd have been rolling around. But yeah.
Well, that's it. It's the Dominic Iorfa one. I suppose in defence of Dominic Iorfa, a minute and 30 seconds beforehand, he's just seen exactly the same challenge made in the corner on an attacking player and no free kick given. You see him go shoulder to shoulder and the exact same happens, but ultimately a free kick is given. And I would argue that was more of a shoulder to shoulder than the first one. The ball goes into the box. Again, we've spoke about it a number of times. I know Danny was asked the question about it after the game about leaving kind of like attacking players further up the pitch. Ultimately, I will leave it to him and he will live and die by the decisions that he makes. I still think it's baffling that we don't leave a player further forward, because I think it allows for when that ball is cleared, because I don't think the header's a poor one in terms of a clearance. I actually think the header's quite a decent one. You could argue it needs to go back where he's come from, but it comes in with a lot of pace, and actually he does get quite a large amount of distance on it. It goes out to about 40 yards out. As you say, it's a great piece of skill from Gustavo Harmer to sell the dummy, because every single bastard in the ground thought he was shooting. Yeah. Every single person thought he was shooting. Again, when you watch some of the fan, like as painful as they are, guys, I would encourage you to go and watch it. When you watch the delivery come in from some of the fan clips that are going around, you actually hear everybody on that United stand behind the goal groan and go, "Oh fucking hell," because the delivery was poor and actually it's effectively cleared. Harmer then sells a dummy. O'Hare obviously then receives the ball, plays a quick one-touch finish. I think the best part about it is actually the finish. In terms of, I think you can criticise James Beadle for a number of things. I think one of the things that I'm not a goalkeeper, but I think one of the things that you can never criticise a goalkeeper on is when a player goes in, you want a player to come out, or you want a goalkeeper to come out and narrow the angle down. He starts to do it, but the shot's taken so early, like it is hit so early. There's no opportunity to set himself. We saw a couple of weeks ago at Portsmouth, Michael Smith wanting an age to try and steady himself to telegraph it into the far corner. It was the one time in the game where a player actually just took a snapshot and just
I don't
hope
think
for
he
the
even
best.
looked. I don't think he even looks where the goal is. He just knows where the goal is and just hits it kind of first time and probably catches him a little bit off guard. And that's what you've got to do as a striker sometimes to score your goals. Just on that header as well, the clearance. One thing I noticed every time when our corners came in, free kicks, whenever they headed the ball out, it did go to the sides. It didn't go straight down the middle. Now, it's coming with a lot of pace, and he's probably tried to direct it there. But I do see it quite often. The ball does just pop out, kind of in the centre of the goal, and that, lo and behold, that's where their players are waiting, and then the ball comes back in, and you're having to, defend yet another, attack. Whereas when I saw them, every time it's kind of they had players in those areas and they just headed it out to them. There's no, if they don't win that second ball, then it's not a real, there's not an immediate threat. And probably again,
that James goes back to, again, I it's not just myself. I know a couple of fans have mentioned this. That goes back to my argument of there was a stat after the game. I think Danny said that we've conceded 14 goals from set pieces. Something's not working. Something isn't working, and I am by no means a tactical expert in football, but one of the most obvious things that seems to happen a lot is oppositions seem to receive the ball on the edge of the area an awful lot from our clearances. And it's not actually, we've actually gone past and we've got better at actually defending balls into the box. Because if you take today, every single one of both of their centre halves are actually taller than any of our individual players on the pitch. But they haven't won a header and directed it on target at goal. We have had the first contact on those headers and either nodded it away for a corner or a throw-in, or we've knocked it out of play. We have got no hope of winning second balls if you don't have somebody placed there. And again, I always feel this is when Jeddy Gassama is on the pitch. Why on earth we leave him in the box is baffling to me, because he's never going to win a header, as we saw in the second half. His whole game is getting the ball under control when it seems really difficult to, and initiating contact and going down. It just, to me, felt like had you had somebody placed there, like a Bannon. What is Bannon doing in the box? Like if you have that player,
he won a few headers today. I'll have you know.
I'm baffled.
But I do agree. Gassama has got loads of pace. Surely, I don't know the numbers, but I'd love to know what the outcomes of most corners or free kicks are. As in, did the keeper catch it? Did it go out for a goal kick? Did it end up as a shot? You know what I mean? What is the actual outcome? Because I'm sure there'll be a lot where the keeper's caught it. Now, in that game of this a cagey affair, surely keeper comes out and catches it, and let's be right, leave one man up, they leave two men. They always double up all the time. So, if you do that, that's two less players in the box, because they always leave one player out anyway. They've had to take another player out for in this case Gassama. So that makes it, in my eyes, easier for the goalkeeper to come and claim the ball, because there's two less players in the box that potentially going to block him off. And you catch the ball. First thing you do, look for your man, bowl it out to him or kick it, whatever it may be, and start an attack and get the fans going. Not do it every single time, but surely that, I'm on you with that one. I just don't see what the advantage is of having, there'd be what, 20 players in and around the box, which is just, when we're conceding that many, we need to do something different.
And that's it, is because also the way in which that we defensively line up, I'm thinking specifically for corners here, we use the 6-yard area as that is our defensive line. And we have almost 8-9 players lined up on that defensive line. And obviously we have a couple of people who are marking for a short corner or going for a short corner, but the rest of it seems to be, we're going to line up on that 6-yard area and you're going to zonally mark. And obviously, I suppose the thinking behind it is safety in numbers. We don't, and I know a lot of clubs don't do this anymore, we don't have anybody on either post. And actually, I thought a real big credit for James Beadle today, he came and won an awful lot in the air today. He was punching things clear. He didn't try and catch anything, because this is not a game for catching the ball in a crowded penalty area, because if you spill it, and it just bobbles to one of them, and if they tap it in, you're the one who's this. But how many times, both first and second half, did Beadle get a strong punch 20, 30 yards out to those wings away from goal and allow people there? But again, unless he's hitting a touchline at present, it's an opposition player who picks the ball up. And then you've got to have what we had for the goal. You've got to have players tear arse out to them. And when they tear out to them, you've got two options. One is you've got opportunity and time to get the ball under control and cross it back into the box. Or two, you see what happened for the goal today. You shape to do something, you dip the other way, and you take out immediately 2, 3, 4 players who are all charging out to try and close the cross or the shot or whatever it is that comes in. And I think it's that second phase of play, which we did so well on Tuesday night against Norwich. We did so well away at Coventry. We were, I'd argue, one of the best performances in the league for fucking Plymouth. We did that incredibly well for all of those days. And the games where it's been those, Danny talked about it after the game, those fine margins, those fine little moments, is when players are, because you can't fault the application. You can't fault Windass and Bannon for getting out and trying to close them down because they're there. The problem is, the lad who's controlled the ball has had to watch them come running at him from 15 yards, and he's got the opportunity to make a decision about what he wants to do. I mean, let's make no bones about it. Gustavo Harmer, before he signed for Sheffield United, was one of the hottest properties in the Championship. Yeah. It's why Sheffield United paid, 8, 9, 10 million, however much it was for him last season. Okay, granted, he didn't make the step up to the Premier League, but he's still again, I would argue, the best number 10 in the league. He is, and that was the only time for me all game where he got the ball centrally and made something happen. Because ultimately, all Callum O'Hare has to do, all Tyrese Campbell has to do, is just keep the ball moving. He creates that goal, and it's not on us. And I suppose if you are going to lose a game, the one moment of quality is one of those where it's similar to the Modiami one at Hull, where it's a moment of quality, where you kind of look back and go, yes, as frustrating and as annoying and as hurtful as it is, I'd rather that than us fail to defend a set piece. Or can you imagine if it had been the goal from QPR that have happened today? Fucking hell, the head loss that would have happened from everybody in that away end and everybody watching it on the TV, either at home or in pubs or wherever, would have been fucking ballistic. Again, it's a tough one to take, but you're setting out your own problems, I think, personally.
Yeah, well, the goal came on 50 minutes. I've seen a lot of people kind of in the immediate aftermath of the goal saying, we never start second half very well. So it prompted me to have a look, actually, at kind of when we've been conceding goals. And lo and behold, I think this is it has updated. 7 goals we concede in them 15 minutes after the first half. So between 45 and 60 minutes. Like I said, it might not have updated, in which case it would be 8, but it's still, even without that, it is still the highest. I mean, just in comparison, we concede 6 in the final 15 minutes, 4 in the kind of middle 15 of the second half, which means, 17 goals conceded in the second half of games, which, just having a quick look, is the most joint worst in the league so far with Luton and Portsmouth, which good company. Yeah,
2 bottom 3 sides, great company.
Do you think that is a problem, us starting the second half? I mean, the second half performance in total was dire against Watford, but it does seem like we are slow to get going, and quite rightly there. 7 goals conceded in 15 minutes that come after the half time is quite a lot.
It's a problem. Like, again, it's a problem similar to our set piece defending. It's a problem because you have to look at, and I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Danny isn't stupid enough to not know all of this. Like, he's not. Like, he's. I mean, I know you are big on your stats, James. Fucking hell, I dread to think what his Excel spreadsheet must look like. Fucking Jesus. I think it's a problem, and I don't think it's a problem because of any directive that the manager is saying. I personally feel it's a link to the quality that we have on the pitch of players being able to figure out what the opposition have done in that half-time break. Because forgive me if I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, no manager nowadays, modern football, is going to come out and go, right, same again. We might all do that as fans, just carry on like we've just finished the first half, like we've said it just here. If we just carry on from what we were doing first half, the problem is Sheffield United made 2 changes and a system tweak, and it takes us 5, 10, 15 minutes. Watford did it on last Saturday. It takes us 5, 10, 15 minutes to actually figure out what we're doing and how to solve that puzzle. And that is down to the players on the pitch. That's not down to the manager. The manager has sent the squad out with his instructions. And then from the minute that kickoff happens, he's then trying to dissect, right, what on earth have they done? How have they changed this? Why is this different? And actually, your players have to be able to step up and take that responsibility. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't do that and that they aren't trying to do that. I'm saying that the level of investment and quality that is in this squad currently, there's a reason why the players are playing for Sheffield Wednesday. And if they were capable of figuring that out on the pitch, we would have another 10 points and be further up the league. Is the honest truth of the matter. It's not me trying to dig people out. It's not me trying to have a go at people. It is me recognising we are a mid-table championship team. And top half teams who are able to do this quickly and are able to recognise that quickly will ultimately be in a better position to make the adjustments, not concede those goals at the start of the second half, and ultimately not go for 40 minutes trying to get back into a game. Because you mentioned, didn't you, if we'd have gone in at 0-0 up until 70 minutes, Danny chucks those changes on and starts going for it. But do you honestly think he makes all 5 attacking subs? I personally don't. I think if that's 0-0, he maybe brings Smith on, one of Gassama or Masaba, and Valentin, and Smith maybe for Ugbo. But aside from that, he's not going, right, fuck it, we've just got to go all out attack, because that is ultimately kind of what he ended up doing, wasn't it? At the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, just on the changes and things like that, and not adapting to them. I think when you look back on certain games this season, how many times have we been the better side in the first half, or certainly the better side going into half time, not really capitalising on it? Watford is a prime example, and then obviously I mentioned about today. In 10 minutes before the half time, we had a bit of joy. I don't know whether it's a case of because we are the better side going into half time, the opposition manager thinks, well, we've got to tweak it here and make them changes, and obviously half time is a perfect time to do that. And then they come out the second half, and we just we probably do maybe it's a bit of carry on doing what you're doing because it is working, and they've tweaked it, they've changed it, and then lo and behold, I mean, look, I don't think the goal came from a system tweak, but they certainly came out the second half, and
better,
and dominated certainly the first 5 minutes up until the goal, and then after that, I'm not going to lie, I felt like the floodgates were going to open a little bit. We did look a bit shell-shocked.
5 minutes after that, it was hold on, wasn't it, for 5 minutes?
Yeah, because they found a voice that they didn't have beforehand, and I just think I was fearing the worst. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was going to be another goal at some point, and then I'm like, Jesus, this is going to be a torrid afternoon. But luckily, that didn't happen. I did feel like when we did make them changes, Matt, they did change it. I thought we looked bright. Obviously, Masaba came on, Gassama and Smith as well. I know Jamal Lowe came on a little bit later, and Valentin. But I think certainly when Masaba came on, he looked very bright. And the thing is, I say speedboat, no driver. I feel like I say it every single week, and they're not really. They're not changing my mind on that. No. It's that decision making in those final moments, in that final third. Both of them fall foul of it, and they both fell foul of it today as well. He's come on, great trickery, to get past the man. He cuts inside, drives for the goal, and then it's a great tackle block. Call it whatever you want. Could he have perhaps pulled the trigger a little bit earlier? Could he have squared it? Yeah. Not too sure. There was one a little bit late. Yeah. There was one a little bit later on where the pass is a little bit too strong for him. So I'll give him that one. He's tried to control it on the byline, then slips over. The ball then goes out of play, and I'm like, just fucking smash it. Just smash it. You've got there. Just smash it across the box. I don't really care if it goes straight into the keeper's arms or what, because it was a bit of a poor pass. But all could happen. It could deflect off one of their defenders. We could get a toe end on it. Anything could happen, and we could score a goal. And then same with Gassama. Late on, he's got all the time in the world, and then decides to cut inside, which is fine. and then he's trying to play a little floaty cross when Gary Barlow's son's in the box, and they deal with it and they head it away, and I'm like, oh, it's just, again, it's that decision making in those final moments that just needs to be a little bit better.
And it's one of the reasons why I was such a big campaigner for a player that ultimately went off to Sunderland in the summer, was because irrespective of what you feel about his injury record, irrespective of what you feel he went off to do kind of this season and how much Sunderland fans don't rate him and the fact that he'll probably be looking for a move again next summer, that is what we had last year when fit, in a creative player out wide in those positions, and it makes life a whole heap easier because it allows those speedier speedboat no driver players to actually be released into open space because they draw players to them. Say, for argument's sake, we talked about him because he was on the opposition side today in terms of Gustavo Harmer. I thought he was poor all game, but that one moment of quality where he has the opportunity to slow it down and draw players in and pick the right pass, he does. How many times did we see that from that January through until March run, where we had a player last season who came in, drew opposition players to them, beat them, and then made the right pass? We saw it constantly. You mentioned that Anthony Masaba run. It was wonderful and really impactful, and the subs did change the game for about 10 minutes. And then after that, United figured out how to play against it, and Michael Smith didn't win header for the rest of the game. And that's not a slight against Michael Smith. It's because we started going long to him, and they recognised, oh, actually, he's very different to Ike Ogbo. You just get right up his back, and he's not winning header. Because we're bigger, we're stronger than him, and we'll ultimately get to the ball first. When Smith first came on, it was it Harry Souter, dark-haired lad, whoever it was who was at centre-half for him, dark-haired lad.
Yeah, Anil, I think his first name is.
Yeah, that's that. Al Mahadzi, or whatever his name is. It's Piggy Bastard. Whoever he was, there was balls played up to Michael Smith, and he had the freedom of Bramall Lane to bring it down on his chest and bring somebody into play. Yeah. And then when they realised, oh, hang on, I've just gone up for header with it and I've won it, let me just do that every time, it ultimately went down. That Masaba chance came from a really quick flick round the corner by Michael Smith, but he's got 2 yards because there's nobody up his arse. He does really well, Masaba. As you say, different player, different position, does all the hard work. Because to beat 2 players with a gap that's not there, shoot. First time, shoot. We saw it 50 minutes in from a Sheffield United player, shoot. Drill it across the box, pull it back, make a decision quick, because no player on that pitch today had time on the ball. Not one of them. Nobody had time on the ball unless they made it for themselves. He's made the space. He's made the opportunity for himself. Just hit it as hard as you fucking can. Or pick your head up and square it across. He tries to take a touch. Ultimately, yes, it's a wonderful tackle, but the players who were making the tackle shouldn't have had the opportunity to. And then when you say about that ball from Charles through to Masaba, agreed with you. It's a strong pass. It's heavy. He's almost got... This is the downside to obviously having a young loan player. You know, I still think Shea Charles is our best player, hands down, and I will do until he leaves the door at Sheffield Wednesday at the end of the year. But ultimately, the pass is overhit. But Masaba does get there. He does keep the ball in. Just hit it across, because you are never, ever going to be able to stop on a dime whilst he's running at full pace, turn and get there before their right back, left back has got the ball.
All you're doing is stopping the ball for them to clear it, aren't you, really?
100%. And I know he's trying to do the right things. It's not for want of trying with Anthony Masaba or Jedi Gassama. It's not for want of trying. It's those decisions in the final third that separate teams in this league. It's the difference between us finishing 15th and us finishing 9th or 10th.
And it wasn't the occasion either, because, you know, they do it every single week. Like, it's not like the occasion got too much for them, or they couldn't play in front of that sort of crowd, or the hostility, because I don't think, there wasn't a great deal of that anyway. It was just a case of they just picked the wrong moment, the wrong thing to do on too many occasions, to be fair. Look, they score goals. He scored goals, but Masaba 7 goals last season. I think has he got 1 so far this season? Yeah,
an important goal against West Brom. Yeah,
and Gassama, scored that great goal against Brentford. He got 1 against Coventry, which are a great goal. So they can do it. They can, and again, it's that word, frustrating, and that is the frustrating element to their game, because there's a player in there, the 100% is. But there's a reason why they both started on the bench. And if they can just sort
And
that decision making out, then there's 10 times better players.
And you will not get either of those moments, and this isn't, again, a slight on both of these players, you don't get either of those opportunities with Josh Windass or Svante Ingolson on the pitch because they don't make those runs. There was so many times where the ball went out wide right to Jan Valery, and Windass had tried to go across his defender and make that run in, but the defender stride for stride with him. So actually, even if he does get the ball, there's a player immediately on him when he receives it, and he's running away from goal and facing the wrong way. Musaba and Gassama have that burst of, Jenny Gassama's not rapid, but he's much quicker than me, but he's not rapid. He has a burst of 5 yards, and I ultimately think Gassama's quicker with the ball than without it. Anthony Musaba is an absolute speed merchant, like an absolute pace merchant. Like, you see him genuinely today, you just see him run away from people.
Yeah.
But it's that point where you do have to compose yourself and slow it down, and they're just neither of whom are capable of doing so, which is why I was such a huge advocate of, in the summer, going out and signing somebody who doesn't rely on their pace but actually relies on their feet, and is when those because in the Championship you can do that. You can actually slow the game down on the edge of the box, and if you're quick-footed enough to beat a player, you effectively take out an entire back line. And that's where ultimately I think our forwards definitely benefited from last year, but would have benefited from massively this year. And, January is rolling up and around we'll be in a transfer embargo, so who gives a fuck? But I'm hoping there's somebody, in the youth team who can do it.
Yeah, I think as well, though, when we get into that final third, when you do lay the ball back, you're passing it to a Bannon who's, all right, I know he scored 2 goals this season, but he seems reluctant to have a pop from the edge of the box. Don't know why, because he can certainly hit a decent one. Although, having read I think it was on the debate show, I think 10% of his shots have been on target this season. They have both gone in, by the way. But yeah, he doesn't seem to want to shoot. He comes to Charles. Well, he's only scored 1 goal in his career. Valery, I saw that goal he scored for Southampton against, I think it was Man United, but I don't know how. I don't think that was actually him, because I've not seen him.
It's bobbled that.
Yeah, I've not seen him take a shot at all. So,
No.
Do you know what I mean? When we do play the ball to the edge of the box, as strikers, our goal scorers are in the box. Those on the edge of the box aren't really going to take a pop shot and have a go, really. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm going to read a few more comments out. Kian's on Twitter said, not a fan of Valery in almost the attacking wing-back position. Don't think he offers an attacking threat. Much rather change formation, to be honest, or play muss or gas. Sky Mag said, end of the day, we were competitive with a side that's probably going to be promoted. Would have been absolutely took apart last season. Just shows we're heading in the right direction. Yeah. Ben Ashmore said, evening lads, we played decent and competed overall. However, not a single shot on goal, simply not good enough. That said, give Roll a few transfer windows and we'll be more than competing. Rob's replied to that by saying, need a few transfer windows, we can't even pay the tax bill.
Correct.
Jay said, I noticed we wasn't playing out from the back today and Beadle was actually kicking it upfield. To be honest, Jay, we've been doing that for quite a few weeks, I feel like. We have been mixing it, although I think we did it a few times, but it was certainly go long. And look, if we'd have conceded a goal by playing it out from the back, Jesus Christ.
Fucking, can you imagine? Meltdown on everything. Jesus wept.
That would be, I saw there was one tweet that was absolute head loss from one Wednesday fan. I think there would be more than just the one head loss if that had have happened. Alex says, Owls did well against a crap Premier League club. Tom's gone with Fort Smith offered us a bit more than Ugbo, to be fair. Half chances instantly popped up. Needed him on. Let's talk about the ref for a second. I think we've already touched on him a little bit, but what did you make to him overall? The first half I thought was reffed okay. The guy at the side of me, I was stood next to the actual gangway. The guy at the opposite side of the gangway, he had it in for the lino all game, constantly. shouting at him, "Are you gonna fucking put that flag up, Lino? He's he's offside." But he was just pissing about with him all game. Does that fucking right arm work or what, Lino? And they put it up. He's like, "Hey!" But he were giving them both barrels throughout, which was quite funny. But yeah, and do you know what I think? I don't think there was any glaring decisions. I read this earlier, after, immediately after the game. I think I've calmed down a touch since.
Still fucking raging.
Yeah, I were. And I think it was mainly just the stupid fouls and not really letting the game flow, which a derby game does need that, because I can't imagine it being a great spectacle from a neutral's perspective. No. People have probably seen it, gone, "Oh, that Wednesday, they did all right in that game a few years back that I watched, or that I missed, probably. Oh, I'll give it a watch today. It might be a decent one, this one." Put it this way, I don't think they'll be watching the next one when we next know.
The ref. First half, I thought he ref the game really well. Again, and ultimately, I will say this: the referee has not cost us the game today. No. The referee has not cost us a decision, which is, as a baseline minimum, the most that you can expect from.
I don't know. Some people have been saying it could have been a pen for Smith.
Again, and this is where I come back to the second half. I think the second half, every possible decision that could have gone the way of the home team did. There were so many 50-50s. And to be fair, I have also seen Sheffield Wednesday get these type of decisions in League One when we have been the big fish in a relatively competitive or smaller pond or whatever. Like, when you're at home, those decisions, if you're one of the bigger teams in the league in terms of like league standing and position and players and you're at home, I think you get them. Like, there were a couple of fouls. The assault on Michael Smith, I think was, if that had been given as a penalty against Sheffield Wednesday today in this game, I'd have been losing my fucking mind. Absolutely losing my mind. Because, yes, I agree with you. Almadzi has got both hands on his shirt, but also Michael Smith has also got hold of him in the beginning, and he tries to push him off him. Yeah. Both of them are at it, but to be fair, by the time the ball comes in, Smith's shirt is almost up over his head. So, yes, any other area of the pitch, it's a foul, but we all know Michael Smith doesn't get fouls. So that's by the by. The one that was the most puzzling for me was Smith is then thrown to the floor by the player, and the ref gives a free kick to Sheffield United. Yeah, and you sat there and you're thinking, hang on, how does that work? There was another one further on which a couple of Sheffield United media outlets have clipped, and I think this sums his performance up in the second half. There's an outstanding piece of skill from Gustavo Harmer where he rolls the ball through Deshaun Bernard's legs. Bernard just puts his hand up as if to like turn and run. Harmer hits the deck, free kick Sheffield United. Yeah. And there's another one which is again, it's an outstanding tackle on Michael Smith. It's a wonderful tackle. Smith is looking to break away. Centre half comes across, smashes the ball out of play, and makes sure Michael Smith knows about it because he hits the deck as well. Throwing Sheffield United. There were so many decisions in that second half that, as you say, stopped the flow of the game, stopped any possible counter. There were even decisions for us actually towards the end of the game where I think we'd have probably rather had the ball. Like there was a breakdown in possession and a United player tugs back a Wednesday shirt rather than just kind of like the referee doing what he was doing in the first half, which was sticking his arm up and letting the play go on. In the second half, he was, especially towards the end of the game, as you said, it was like, I've got 6 minutes here. Please, nobody, unless you do something completely criminal, I'm not giving a decision that's going to rile anybody up. I'm just going to give the obvious fouls and I'm just going to get my stats up so that when the assessor looks at this, they can see, yep, that was a foul, you've given it. Yep, that was this, you've given it. It wasn't reffed in the way, I think the second half, especially the latter stages of the second half, it wasn't reffed as a fan how you would want to see it reffed. Yeah. However, if you were a Sheffield United fan, you will be very pleased with some of the decisions and you would go, yeah, but they were fouls. Yeah, but they were fouls. Yeah, and whilst I agree that some of them may be given, the nature of the game, and if they were given against you, you would still have the same complaints.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, though. There was a point in that second half where I thought the ref pointed to the spot. From where I was sat, I don't know who it is that puts the tackle in, but the two players, as the tackle goes in, they both end up on the floor. and then the ref points, and I'm like, oh fuck. But then I
Max,
thought,
the far end, Max Lowe, I think it was.
Yeah.
Ball's going out of play, and Max Lowe goes shoulders to shoulder and then goes down. And it was when it was like he points, and you think, no. And then you see Beadle walking across to pick the ball up. You think, fuck you, thank God for that.
Yeah, exactly. I thought he points because he delays as well. He takes an age and then points if he's pointing to a goal kick, and I'm like, whew, thank God for that. Yeah, I mean, look, as it happened, didn't really matter. They didn't get a penalty, but yeah. Right, I'm going to read a few of the 3-word match reviews out at WTRD Pod if you want to follow us. Rob's gone with need more quality. Chef Cam needn't have worried. Paul Pashley, need more quality again. Natalie Oxley's gone with proud of us with a little blue love heart emoji. Tuna Taster, great name. Poor ref decisions. Matt's gone with industry, not quality. Alex, Valerie, ball watching. I'm guessing that means that's in reference to the goal. Ain't no party like an S Club party. Has gone with never.
Funny.
Do you like that one? That's it.
I did like that one. I did like that Twitter name. Yeah.
Takes you back, that, doesn't it? Never would have scored is his 3 words. I'll read a few more out. Smith needs starting. Proud, no shame. Not enough crosses. Not too bad. Play acting blunts. Deserved a draw. Refs a blade. Ugbo needs dropping. Brendan, we will be talking about that on extra time. So, patreon.com/WTRD pod. Get involved. Tom, fucking cross it. And then... Then we've got one, Mikey's gone with better team lost. I think we can just file this one away. Do you know what? In my head, my objective number 1 was let's not get embarrassed. We had that last week against Watford, and it weren't great. Do you know what I mean? It was for something similar to have happened against them. They bang on about that 4-2. Far too much anyway. Imagine if they'd have beaten us.
That 2-goal massacre, you mean?
Oh yeah, that 2-goal massacre. It had they had beaten us by a decent scoreline this afternoon, we'd have never heard the last of it. And that I'll be honest, that was my first objective. Let's not get slapped. Yeah. We didn't do that. I felt we put a great account of ourselves. Saying I think they didn't really expect it. I think they probably expected a hand on heart, an easier game. Yeah. And like you said at the top, I think ultimately we were proud of the performance, really.
Yeah, and I think that was reflected also in the full-time scenes on both sets of it. I think, again, I know it's a derby win. I know people go over the top for it. The way in which that both Chris Wilder and other Sheffield United players celebrated let you know how much of a game that they'd been involved in, and probably, yes, I know that there's a lot of emotion surrounding it, but again, some of the scenes at full time were, again, for a game in November, they were big. Everybody waited in the centre circle. They did a full lap of appreciation like Brentford do. It was the slowest walk around a pitch I've ever seen. Like, it was, again, there's that. And then from our side, there were, aside from Josh Windass, who looked thoroughly pissed off by perhaps his performance, perhaps he'd expected more from himself, perhaps it was the nature of the fact that he'd been taken off, perhaps it was the fact that we've just lost. Every Sheffield Wednesday player who had either played a part, who was on the subs bench, came over and just stood in front of the away end and clapped. And there genuinely did look a lot of disappointment on their faces in terms of it wasn't from the... Sometimes, I think back to fucking Millwall. Players coming over to the away end and looked sheepish. It was like 2 claps and then walk off. I think back to when we played at Brentford at Griffin Park and there was only Jacob Murphy who came up and clapped the fans. The fact that they've lost in a derby game, it was actually quite good to see that they'd come up and they were appreciative of the fact that they realised how much this game meant to the fans and themselves as players, because they did stand there for an awful long time. Clapping and kind of like rightfully receiving the applause as well of Wednesday fans who were in attendance today, because realistically, as a Sheffield Wednesday fan, you couldn't have asked. Obviously, you could have asked for a better result, but ultimately, in terms of the application that the players showed, I don't think you could have asked more for them, and that's all we ask as Sheffield Wednesday fans, isn't it? It's the absolute minimum that we ask for is make sure that you have left every single thing on that pitch and out there, and it wasn't for lack of trying today. It was just ultimately a moment of quality, won the game.
I think people will be listening to this thinking, Christ, lads, we've lost a game against Sheffield United. Like, why are you kind of applauding it? And the performance was shit. We didn't have a shot on target. It's not good enough. And this, rah rah rah. And I get all that, but people saying not enough quality. Well, do you know what? Right now, as we sit here, 10th of November, can't do fuck all about that. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can't bring any other players in. We haven't got any money to bring any players in. Clearly, because we can't pay his tax bill. So this is what we've got, and I think you've got to take it kind of, in it by its own merit, really. Like, there isn't a great deal. Yeah, yes, we'd love to have the same quality of players that they've got, but all their players are on 40 grand a week, so we can't do that.
Big hitters.
So we've got to make do with what we've got, and yes, there's some shortcomings on certain players. Yes, certain players aren't quite as good as what we want them to be. And players come off the bench again aren't performing to the levels. But again, it's all about that application, and yet with a bit of extra quality, a little bit of composure, whatever else, it could have been a different story. But they went out there. I don't know what the game plan was, but if the game plan was to frustrate them, they did that to a T in that first half. Just with a little bit of a little bit of composure of defending it for that goal that they scored. Again, it could have been a totally different day. It wasn't. We've lost the game, but actually, we're going to this international break, and I don't think there's many Wednesday fans that are going to be really angry and thinking that we're really going to struggle. Yes, it's a defeat. Yes, we got beat by Watford last weekend as well. But we went against Norwich and beat them fairly comfortably 2-0. So you've got to take the rough with this move. Again, it is another top 6 side that we've not beaten, which is a little bit worrying. But yeah.
Just while we're in the comments, Joshua Haig's just cropped up saying, "Sure, and boys, we are here. Why? Why are you here? Like, genuinely, why?" But I know you were just going on to talk about the international break, James. It's just kind of like a segue to that. If we show that same level of work rate and application today is not a day for digging out players. Today is a day for supporting the quality and the players who are on the pitch. If we can show what we have done today, we have shown on Tuesday just gone, in this run of fixtures after that international break coming, we will pick up more points than we will drop. If we play like we did against Norwich on Tuesday and today, we'll pick up more points than we'll drop, because teams won't be able to play and compete at that level.
There's been more performances this season where I've been able to say that, if we play like we played against if we play like we play against Millwall, no, that was awful. But we bounced back from that. If we play like we did in the second half against Watford, we're going to probably get relegated. Guess what? They bounced back from that, and it wasn't a case of, we're not sitting here going 3 games, 3 defeats, abysmal. Where's the next goal going to come from? This, that, and the other. I think a derby in itself is its own game, innit? Do you know what I mean? It's a different. It's always going to be cagey. It's never going to be free flowing. I know Chris Wilder said that after that he wanted to play a bit better football. Of course he did, but we stopped him from.
Oh, we'd want to play like fucking Plymouth every week, but that hasn't happened, has it?
Yeah, exactly. But moving on to the international break. Another one. Is this the 3rd one this season already?
Yeah, this is the last one in it for a long while. There's a huge gap now until I fucking hope so. Is it March or February the next one? It's miles away the next one.
Yeah, I'm glad, because it annoys me, to be fair. But yeah, we have got Cardiff at home, then it's Hull in midweek, and then that awful trip to Pride Park the weekend after. Obviously, we spoke in the car as we were coming back from the game. I think I'm right in saying the lad's going to get a week off rest. I think Danny's going to, see his family and things like that in this week. So and do you know what? I don't mind that. I think they do need. There's been a lot of football, hasn't there, recently? And actually, it's not a case of, right, they need to get on the training ground and totally, tear up the rule book and start again and find a new way of playing. Like we just mentioned there, carry on playing the way that you are playing, and we will get some results. But that rest is 100% needed in it, because there's been some players. I mean, Shea Charles. I mean, he's not going to get a rest, is he? Because he's going off on international duty, but he must be fucking knackered.
Yeah, and I mean, also, the work rate that we ask him to get through, I don't think today was a game for centre midfielders. I don't think any of the centre midfielders who were on the pitch today, including, apparently the second coming of Jesus Christ in Vinny Souza, I don't think it was a game for any of them today. And the game was never going to be won by centre midfielders today. It was always going to be won by wide players getting in down the wing, and if we could do it or they could do it. Shea Charles needs a fucking rest. And actually the fact that he's going to go off and play international football probably ain't going to give him that break. And he's so important to us. I know there's Total Saints podcast who are in it in the chat as well and watching it. Please enjoy the next couple of minutes. Shea Charles is shit. You don't want him back. He's so important to the way that we play. Because do you remember after that first international break, James, after we'd beat Plymouth and then been slapped every other game? Like we'd been absolutely outclassed and outmuscled and just beaten. But his first game was Millwall, and obviously he came on and made that substitute appearance in that. Since then, you'd argue in recent weeks, Michael Smith, Deshaun Bernard, and it was definitely... Deshaun Bernard, Marvin Johnson, and it was Akim Famewo before he left. Those are the most important players to us. Like, I know people will maybe get a little bit upset about the fact that I'm not mentioning Barry Bannon in there, but I count Barry Bannon as a bit of a bit of an anomaly because of his age and because of the fact that, we've spoken about this before. We really need to be looking to find a way to try and cycle him out of the team in terms of like starting to plan for that future beyond him. He needs a rest. Marvin Johnson needs a rest. Deshaun Bernard needs a rest. The problem is quite a few of our quality players, they're not going to get them. They're not going to get that break because this next run of, as you said, we've got Cardiff, Hull, Pride Park, they're all in the space of a week, aren't they? Yeah. It's 3 game weeks pretty much all the way up through until January now, where actually that squad depth and that rotation is really going to be tested. And I'm not just talking about us, I'm talking about everybody in the Championship.
I'm just looking here, Matt.
We have to.
16 games Shea Charles has played since Millwall. And Millwall was on the 31st of August. So you could practically say September, October, and then the first week in November. So what's that going to be? That's going to be 8. That's 10 weeks, 16 games of football. And you look, 90 minutes, 90, all the way through. He got 5 minutes rest when they beat Bulgaria 5-0. He came off on 73 minutes when we got beat by Burnley. And he came off on 66 minutes against Watford. Other than that, he's played 90 minutes pretty much every single game. I mean, look, he's a young lad. People will say, he gets paid all this money, young lad. And everything else, I've not played football to any level. I used to do a bit like...
Being tired.
It does. All that money. Like, you got to be tired of getting paid all that money. Like, it should be superhuman. But, yeah. I did a lot. It might not look like it, but I used to do quite a lot of cycling. And when you're tired, like you just can't perform at those levels. It's not only that; it's mentally as well. That I think there's sometimes he's probably showing that a little bit. I mean, he's not even going to get a rest. We're talking about players getting a rest. He's going to play 2 games. I mean, to be fair, why don't we just say he's broke his toe and just not go on international duty? That would benefit us massively.
That'd be great.
If he could do that, or has he got a girlfriend? Is she pregnant this week or something like that?
Something's got to be up. Something's got. He's got calf strain from all the running that he's been, from all the carrying of our midfielders that he's been doing this year. So
would not surprise me.
Like when you're talking about that, like in terms of like your cycling, you've also just done a month of running 5K every single day for prostate cancer. Now, I know these are professional athletes and they will do a lot more than that every single day that they're in training. You have openly said both on here and in messages, I'm in fucking pieces and all I have done is run 5K every day. Yeah. We are talking about one of the most competitive football leagues in the world. And we are talking about a young player who, yes, okay, granted, he may be able to spring up out of bed every day and just run through brick walls until he breaks. The problem is he's so important to us, you don't want him to break. And we've already seen that with Akinfenwa. Now, I know Akinfenwa has a long line of, say for argument's sake, injury history in his career. But we saw what happened when we were having to play him, because actually, I'm sure, was it the previous game he'd come off, or there was some kind of like doubt around him playing before he went to Portsmouth.
Yeah.
And then we see he's either torn his quad or pulled his quad or whatever it is that we obviously haven't been kind of like informed about it. This is the difficulty, isn't it, of like having the squad that we have and the investment in it, is that I'm looking at those 3 games in that week that we come back. Cardiff at home, you'd hope for a win because Cardiff are basically the same side as us, maybe a little bit worse. Hull are in disarray and all over the shop, especially compared to last year. And Derby are a newly promoted side who, pull one, you know exactly what you're going to get. Realistically, you're looking at that week and thinking, there's 2 away games in there, but there's 6 points there on offer. Realistically, there's 9. Like, every single one of those is a winnable game. But I'd love 6 points from it. But you've got to rotate that squad. And, when Norwich, we keep going back to Norwich on Tuesday night, how deep did we go? We saw Callum Patterson play a fucking league game. Like, there must be something wrong. But we were actually able to rotate those players and we're able to give them the time off. It is so important that players get that rest. But our key definitely like 2 of our key players, they're just not going to get it. And it's, it's been mentioned a couple of times in sort of the chat surrounding a little bit of investment in January. We'll see if we can even fucking do it for a start, because we're now approaching a very, very critical window of someone's got to have to pay a tax bill. Otherwise, we ain't going to be signing fucking anyone.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the fixtures that are coming up. Yeah, Cardiff at home, Hull and Derby away. Then it's Preston and Blackburn back-to-back at home, Oxford away, Stoke at home, and then it's Middlesbrough. They look decent. They're doing all right. They're just outside the top 6 at the moment. But that's Boxing Day. That's all those fixtures take us right up to Christmas. And if you look at those, like there's none of those teams that really worry me. We're not going to go out and win every single one, but there's an opportunity and a chance there to actually go out and actually pick up some decent points. There's nothing stopping us, like you said there, picking 5-6 points up from these next 3 games fairly easy. You're looking Hull are 19th. Cardiff, who will play first, they're 22nd. Hull are 19th. Derby, they're doing all right. The 12th so far this season. I mean, it is very concertinaed up when you look at the points tallies and everything. Oxford, they're 16th. Preston, Blackburn, whereabouts are they? I mean, Blackburn are doing all right. They're 9th.
At home. Yeah, at home, Blackburn are okay.
Yeah. And Preston are 20th. So there's a lot of teams. We're talking about teams at the top 6 that we can't really beat, but we're playing a lot of teams in that bottom half in his next couple of games, or next 5 or 6 games. So there's a block there that we need to take advantage of, really. And you know what? I'm not really that worried about it. We're not sat here, like I said, saying where's the next goal going to come from. It's helped that Smith's scored a few. Windass has got in the goals as well. We just need Ugbo to start scoring like it was last season. Right, we're going to wrap things up there. Massive thanks, everyone, for listening. I was hoping that this was going to be a celebratory podcast talking about the emphatic win at Sheffield United, but we'll just have to wait until March for that instead. Roll on the return fixture, where we can make amends. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening and watching. We are going to be talking about Ike Ugbo and what next for him, and how do we get him firing and scoring goals. If you want to listen to that, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/WTRD pod. If my voice holds up, I sound like Barry White right at the moment, but I did think that I was going to be having to do this in sign language, but as it happens, my voice is holding up just a touch. And also as well, if you want to get some of the merch, if you're watching on YouTube, the Danny Real t-shirt, wtrdpod.myshopify.com is where you can get all of that, and the mugs and the prints and everything else. There's loads of stuff to have a look at. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone. and we'll see you all next time. Cheers.